Hey guys, Dr. Ben here, Functional Medicine Centers. Welcome. So excited to talk to you today about the immune system. So I'm Dr. Ben Galliard. I run the Functional Medicine Centers. We have an office in Fort Collins, Colorado, Phoenix, Arizona, author of the book Rebuild Your Brain, Stop the Damage, Start the Repair, as well as Blood Sugar Doesn't Lie. So today we're going to be talking about the immune system and everything we need to know about the nitty-gritty of how the immune system is going to be tackling all of these issues that we need to deal with, whether that is a virus, whether that's a bacteria, any type of parasite, anything else going on in the body. So let's get down to the basics, right? The immune system is there to rev up at the right time, attack what needs to be attacked, and then pull itself back. And this is how we've evolved over the years. Our body's been able to handle all types of different pathogens, all types of different things out in the wild. That's how we've gone from, a few thousand people to we've got billions of people now in this world, because our immune systems have been able to evolve, have been able to handle a lot more pathogens, different things coming at us. Otherwise, we'd be dying off left and right, wouldn't be able to handle a lot of the stressors that are coming at us. So for those of you that are new to our page, go ahead and like or follow the page. Tons of good information out there, lots of different topics, thyroid, gut, immune system, all types of different things. Share this with anybody that you know that is looking at the immune system, things that they can do. So let's jump into it. Let's jump into what that immune system is doing, how it's going to be working, and things that you can do to help with this. So if you're watching in, guys, go ahead and put down below where you're watching from. And then if you've got any questions about the immune system, go ahead and throw those in as well. So let's say you're going into the store, going into an office, whatever it is, you touch the door handle, someone had just sneezed on their hand, they put their hand on the doorknob, you open it, or your kid is at school and they're getting coughed on by another kid, whatever's going on, and you get exposed to a virus. That virus is going to come into the body, and the goal of the virus is to multiply and replicate and become more prevalent in its host. And what this is going to do is allow the virus to replicate, and that's its ultimate goal, is to create as much replication as possible. And that's the virus. What's interesting is as viruses last longer in the environment and in humans and in other animals, they actually become less deadly, because the goal of the virus is not to kill off the host. It wants to be able to replicate, and if the host dies, then the virus goes away. So the virus actually becomes less deadly over time, because it wants to keep replicating, keep going through this process. So what does that mean? Well, the virus wants to get into our cells. So we've got a cell, and the virus will actually go into that cell, and it's going to try to hide out while it replicates, because it knows if it's floating around in the bloodstream, that's when the immune system is going to jump in and try to attack that virus. So the virus can go into that cell, and there's basically a very common way that it gets into that cell, and that is through the Ace2 receptor. And if any of you have been following our page or reading much research, this is why there's some research showing that Ace2 inhibitor drugs are actually causing more damage with COVID and some other issues here. So the Ace2 receptor is basically this keyhole in the side of the cell. The virus gets into the cell and starts hiding out there and starts replicating. So what the cell does is the cell will send some proteins out so that the immune system can actually start seeing, hey, red alert, red alert. It basically puts these flags out on its outside of the cell and says, hey, come and deal with what's going on here, because this virus is hiding out inside of that cell, and now we need to rev up that immune response and get this going. The other thing that it will do is release other kinds of proteins so that other cells around it also start sending out alerts that we need to do something. We need to get revved up and we need to attack. So there's two parts of the immune system that we're talking about here. This is more of the immediate part of the immune system. And then you've got the longer term, which is going to be the antibodies and some other parts of the immune system that are going to be long term. So if you've had chickenpox, your body has created antibodies, and that's more that long term. So even if you get exposed to chickenpox down the road, your immune system will rev up. With COVID, we're going to do this type of a response and do it very quickly. So what happens when this whole activity starts taking place, we also create something called cytokines. And again, if you've been following our page or looking at much of the research, a cytokine storm is actually one of the big problems that happens when we get this viral infection, when COVID comes into place, and somebody gets into that second stage of the viral infection. So after 5, 6, 7 days, if it's still going on there, we can get into this cytokine storm. Cytokines are naturally released from the body. They're an inflammatory, a pro-inflammation protein that when viruses come into the cell, cytokines are released, and when we recognize these proteins, and it's going to create this inflammatory cascade. And that's really important for fighting things off. That's really important for dealing with immune issues like viruses and bacteria and things like that. But what happens is we need to modulate our immune response. So we've got this teeter-totter, and we need to be able to turn it up at the right time and turn it down at the right time. But what can happen, especially when we have a viral load like this, is we can create a cytokine storm. And that cytokine storm is going to create excess inflammation in the brain, in the lungs. This is why we've seen some of the most damage to patients and people that have severe lung issues or already deficient in those areas. We've seen these cytokines come into those areas and damage it. One of the only things that's been shown to calm down this cytokine storm is what's called modified citrus pectin. MCP, modified citrus pectin, is going to be the only material that has been shown in the research to calm down this cytokine storm. So for those of you that are building up your antiviral kit, modified citrus pectin is going to be one of the best things that you can have in there, especially after you get that infection and before you get into that 5 to 7 days. If you start feeling it come down, start taking that modified citrus pectin, and that is going to help calm down this cytokine storm. So super, super important on that one. Okay, so the virus comes into the body. The goal of the virus is to replicate itself and to make more of it. So it's going to come into the cell through the Ace2 receptor. This is why ACE inhibiting drugs are causing such problems with patients with COVID. Those are like blood pressure medications and some things like that. So a virus comes in through that keyhole into the cell, hides out, and tries to replicate. The cell says, hey, red alert, we're going to kick out proteins that tell the immune system to come in and attack, and it's also going to kick out proteins that tell other cells around it, rev up and send out those red alert flags that the body needs to come and attack. So this is where the body is going to kick out cytotoxic T cells and natural killer cells. And those are the two most common cells that are going to rev up and attack viruses. So this is why when the research is showing that 40 to 60% of the population has T cells that are going to combat the SARS virus, that are going to help deal with COVID from old flu, colds, things like that, from other coronaviruses, the T cells are going to already be there, that are going to look similar enough to that COVID that it's going to deal with it. And so 40 to 60% is what the research is showing. Those people will never get a full-blown COVID infection. They'll never be contagious, anything like that. So that's one of the great parts and what's going to get us towards our herd immunity way faster than anything else out there. So the T cells, a lot of people, even though it's a novel or new virus that we're dealing with here, the T cells are going to be close enough from other coronaviruses that it's going to be able to attack this virus, get into the cells, attack that virus, even without having to create antibodies and all of those things that people have been talking about. So again, for those of you just jumping on here, the virus comes into the body, it comes the keyhole through the Ace2 receptor into the cell because the virus wants to hide out, it wants to replicate itself. And remember, viruses do not want to kill the host, because the host, then you're not going to be able to replicate, and that person dies, and then the virus dies with it. So we've got to be able to keep that going. So viruses over time actually become less deadly. Hey Brandy, good to see you out there. So go ahead and put down where you guys are watching from. Love to see where everybody is. And if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw those down below. So then the cell, because it sees that virus is hiding, kicks out proteins, puts out these flags saying, hey, come deal with this. It tells other cells around it to rev up and kick out those same things. We also kick out what are called cytokines, which are these pro-inflammatory proteins in the body that are going to deal with all of the inflammation. It's going to create inflammation, cause the body to say, hey, rev up, deal with stuff. But we need to balance that out. We can't go too high or we can't go too low. If you go too low, then you really get sick and you let that virus replicate and really wear you down. If you go too high, then we get that pro-inflammatory response over-exaggerated, and that's going to cause a lot of damage. That's where that cytokine storm comes in, damages the lungs, damages the kidneys, damages the liver, all of those issues. Hey guys, good to see you out there in Nebraska. Everybody, go ahead and share this as we're going through this video. A lot more people can see us through there, so go ahead and do that. So the cytokine storm, we've been talking about this for months. Way back in March, we were talking about this. After 5 days of COVID infection, that is going to be one of the big reasons why people have to go to the hospital, why they get more sick, is because that immune system gets very revved up. So then the T cells, the cytotoxic T cells and the natural killer cells come in and try to attack and destroy that virus. Over time, so if we give this 1, 2, 3 weeks, the body actually starts creating antibodies, which are going to be long-term immune cells that come and tag those viruses for destruction, and they destroy that virus. So you've got two phases. You've got one where the T cells, the natural killer cells, are going to come in and attack whatever it is. If they recognize it as a bad thing, it's going to do it immediate in the first 24 hours, 48 hours, things like that. If it's allowed to really proliferate in the body and this whole process isn't doing enough, then we create the antibodies. Then we're going to create this full-blown immune response that is going to have a memory to it, and it's going to be able to prevent this from happening again. And the next time a virus or one that looks similar to it comes into the body, we're going to see that immune response, and you're not going to have to wait that 1, 2, 3 weeks for that immune system to get revved up. So hope that's making sense for everybody. Again, virus comes in, hides in the cells through the Ace2 receptor. The cells say, hey, look out, we need to attack this virus. Cytokine storm is when we get overstimulated and that immune response just gets so revved up and gets going. Modified citrus pectin is the only thing that the research shows calms down that cytokine storm. So I haven't talked about this one yet for those of you that have been following me. So keep an eye out, look for modified citrus pectin. You need that in your antiviral kit. Okay, so what are the things that are going to be balancing for that immune system? Because we need it to rev up at the right time and slow it down. One of the things that decreases the ability of that immune system to rev up: panic, fear, anxiety, stress, brain response, over-exaggerated emotional response, things like that, is going to throw that immune system into dysregulation. It is going to make us more vulnerable. You've got to work on calming that brain down, getting out of that fight or flight pattern. You need a healthy diet. Got to have your good fats, your good proteins, lots of vegetables. Keep that blood sugar as stable as possible. We've talked about this hundreds of times. Blood sugar 85 to 110 all day long. Every time that blood sugar spikes up too much, you're going to decrease the immune response. You've got to keep moving every day, walking, hiking, biking, going up and down your stairs. You've got to keep moving all day long, not overexerting. Overexertion, like a really hard CrossFit workout where you're lying down and can't even move, or you go for a 3-hour hike and you want to take a nap. Overexertion decreases the immune system. So you've got to keep moving, but do it in a way that you're not depleting your immune system. You've got to get outdoors every day. Get out in the sun, get vitamin D, go for a walk in the park, even look at the clouds. Do something where you're getting outside every single day. Get plenty of sleep. For most people, that's 8 hours plus, but you've got to get quality sleep. So if you're not sleeping, you've got to take action on doing that. You need to relax, whether that's music or art or whatever relaxes you. You've got to do that on a daily basis. And then meditation has been shown to be very effective at helping that immune response. So where you're just quiet your mind and don't go into this exaggerated, oh my gosh, I'm thinking response. Get into that good alpha state. So these are some of the things that we talk to patients all the time about. You've got to get that balanced out. You've got to get your body to regulate that immune response and not get too revved up, not get too deficient, because that creates that vulnerability. All right, so let's recap one more time here, and then I want you to go out and teach all your friends about the immune system. So a virus comes into the body. A virus's goal is to replicate and to create more viruses. So it does not want to kill the host. Over time, viral infections actually become less deadly because they don't want to kill off the host. Viruses come in through this little keyhole into the cell to hide out. So it wants to hide in that cell, comes in through the Ace2 receptor. The cell is going to kick out proteins that tells the immune system, hey, come and deal with what's going on. And it's also going to kick out proteins that are going to tell cells around it, hey, there's a red alert here, we better do something. So the body is going to create cytokines, which that cytokine is a pro-inflammatory hormone there that is going to stimulate this immune response. It's going to stimulate inflammation. That's why we'll feel hot, we'll get a fever, things like that. What can happen, unfortunately, is we can create a cytokine storm if we're not regulating that immune system appropriately. So modified citrus pectin, number one thing that you can do to prevent that cytokine storm. The T cells and natural killer cells are going to destroy that virus. And remember, with the T cells, 40 to 60% of the US population has T cells that are going to deal with the coronavirus because of other colds and flus, things like that. So 40 to 60% of you, even if exposed to somebody with COVID, will never get it. And we see that all the time with patients that family members have had the infection, but they did not. And then over time, if we're going to have this response for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, we actually start creating those antibodies for that long-term immune response. So the key is to balance it out. It's like a teeter-totter. You've got to turn it up at the right time. You've got to turn it down at the right time. And that is the key to proper immune system function. So hope you guys learned a little bit. This was fun to teach some of that basics, Immune 101. Share this with anybody that you know. Everybody needs to know how their immune system goes. Like or follow our page if you haven't already, and stay strong. Keep that immune system working as great as possible, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.